Hello everyone. We're going to talk about pride and method in STEM. I'm going to use my two major work in activism in STEM, pride in STEM, and LGBT STEM Day, discussing the successes and most importantly, I think from your point of view, the limitations and some of the ideas that I am employing going forward. Before we jump into that, I will give you a general idea of the sort of state of LGBT issues in science, technology, engineering, and maths. If you, by any chance, were at our event at the Cambridge Science Festival last year, you will recognize a lot of the slides. If you're coming to the event at the Cambridge Science Festival this year on the 19th of March, you can probably arrive 15 minutes later because my presentation is going to be very similar. But apart from that, who am I? Talk about identity. So this is me. All my different personas, my pronouns, here and him. This has all been said, and most importantly, I am a raging homosexual. Why am I raging? It's key. Because if you're raging, you're not been paying attention. A lot of things that I get in STEM, which might be different for you guys, is that why should we care about LGBT stuff? Like, there is no problem. The only thing you need to do is be a good scientist, and that is the only thing that matters. But I'm going to prove to you that that is absolute nonsense. So, if the only thing that scientists really care is just science, we would find that the people would be more out in academia compared to this is not working. Compared to friends and family. This is from Matis, actually no, I think this came out, I think this is wrong. I think this came out in 2014 or 2015, but on a survey done in 2013. And we see that there is quite a significant difference in how people are out to friends and family and to colleagues. There is this sudden peak of people not being out to colleagues or to students. This is from 2016, is only in physics department, is the LGBT climate in physics, and is physics department in the US. And this is experiences of harassment, and you see that LGBT men is about 11%, a third of LGBT women experience harassment, and it gets to half of them to when you consider trans and gender non-conforming people. And again, this is in physics department. It's not, oh, these people are, well, there shouldn't be harassment anywhere, but it's not like they are general population. This is specific for physics department. Some more details from the same survey is the fact there is a lack of awareness, and about 60% of people said there are colleagues that have lack of awareness. Employees are expected to not act too gay, and is 45%. And I'm always like, isn't that amazing? I'm a physicist. So this is just like, if your boss is telling you like you should not act too gay, in my head it means that there is a scale of gayness. 0, I don't know, Liberace, Elton John. So where do we, what is the too gay? Where is the threshold? Unless the threshold is complete nonsense, because it's whatever, even if there was a threshold, it will constantly be pushed back until we would still back into the heteronormative, comfortable things that the people in charge want. And there is pressure for LGBT employees to stay closeted, and about 30% report that. Things are, as we've seen, worse for trans and gender non-conforming people. Over 22% said that the recent bathroom that they feel comfortable using, which is awful. Like, physicists is not the people that go into the office for a couple of hours, then go home, and then maybe check their email or something. This is people probably spend at least 8, but likely 10 hours in their department, and 22% of them haven't got a bathroom that they feel comfortable using. Co-workers apparently over 40% can use their preferred pronouns. So difficult pronouns. Can learn every single iteration of Greek letters, but apparently we can not cross the lines to pronouns. And this is very specific to the US. Half of them have no health insurance that cover trans issues. These issues also are passed on to the next generation, onto students. This is from 2018 and is about STEM retention, bisexual minority status. So they only looked at lesbian, gay, queer or bisexual students. And they found that there was about 7% retention when it came to STEM. Although, and I always like to point out, the sexual minority students were more likely to do undergraduate research and having, because how it works in the States, having STEM as a major. But they are less likely to continue in STEM. And most of the post-survey answers were about feeling that they don't belong and feeling that there's nobody else like them in science, which is going to highlight one of the major issues that we deal with trying to STEM. And this is very much not ideal. But so far it's all been states. What do we know about the UK? Last year there was the LGBT plus Field Science Climate Survey that reported some interesting facts. Unfortunately, it wasn't super intersectional, but it gives some ideas of things that affect not just queer people, but everyone. So, can start with this. LGBT plus Q plus people in this was done in people working in chemistry, physics, and astronomy in the UK. So LGBT people are almost twice as likely to consider leaving their workplace, but still the fact that non-LGBTQ plus people, 60% likely, it's quite high. And things, again, much worse for trans who consider 1 in 5 consider leaving their workplace often. If we look at more in details, this is people that experience exclusionary behavior, intimidation, offensive things, or harassment in their organization, and this could be their school, their university, their what? Sorry, shut up. See, technology. Okay, let's put it on airplane mode. So, exclusionary or harassment behavior in the UK in 2000 and this was done in 2017 and 2018. And okay, this is horrible. And it's horrible across the board. So, 13% of men, 32% of non-binary people, 19% of women experience harassment in their own organization, 32% of trans people. And across the board, you still see that obviously every single category, and especially the categories that are less widely discussed, people that maybe identify as queer or questioning or other, but also heterosexual people, 10%. There is clearly some major problem in STEM fields that is not being addressed. And it's also very interesting to see as how comfortable people are in the organization, and you have huge fraction of people that are not comfortable at all. And this should be an alarm bell on across the board on what are we doing? Why are so many people not happy to be working here? Again, any kind of identities that is less discussed gets the brunt of the discrimination and feeling uncomfortable. So, for a little bit more stats to quantify across the board, there is, in the UK, there is very little. We have this picture of UK scientific workforce from 2014, so 6 years out of date, which puts about 40% of women versus 60% of men. So, non-binary people, they're always disappearing. Or the power of invisibility.
It's our superpower.
Yeah. There is about 10% that are black and ethnic minority, but unfortunately this one just categorizes all the people of color in a single group, and also they categorize all the disability in a single group. So we have just a very vague number. What does a physicist look like from 2015, still quite a few years ago, shows that there are a lot less women in physics, but we finally have non-binary people, about 1.4%. They have a breakdown by ethnic groups, but it's quite different between the age brackets. So they put that on average they have 9.8% of people working in physics being person of color, but in the 16 to 19 bracket it's 20.5%. And I would love to see if they are like they now. These people should be either finishing university, should be in early career, and we kept those kind of percentages. 9% have disabilities, and they've done quite well in breaking down all the disabilities. And this is for me a mystery because I was looking at this, and 83.5% of the people in the physics that complete the survey identify as heterosexual. We have 5.2% they're bi, gay are 3.4%, gay men, sorry. Lesbian or gay women 0.9%. Again, you can see the intersectionality of having a lot less women. Others are 2.5%, but there is a missing 4.5% that I don't know where it is. And the only graphic and the only part in the survey is just a nice pie chart with the numbers, and the pie chart is complete. So I'm just like, what is that? Is people that didn't want to answer? Is people that are unsure? Like, it's perfectly valid if people didn't want to answer that. It's just like, should we count them? So I would say, according to the Institute of Physics, in 2015, 12% of people in physics are not heterosexual, plus or minus 4.5. No, actually plus probably. So, to give you a little summary of what I've been saying, less than 60% of LGBTQ people in STEM are out. 1 in 3 US physicists have been advised to remain in the closet. 50% of trans and gender non-conforming people were harassed in their department. LGBT students are 7% less likely to enter a STEM career than heterosexual peers. And 42% of US physicists are advised not to act too gay. So, clearly it's raging, and you probably all know this, but hate slows us down, waste our time, discourage us to become more visible and actually challenge the status quo. And the thing that I was put is identity politics has always been part of science, and it's the number one troll message and hate message that I got. We got one last night, from Australia, telling us that, oh, on your deathbed, would you consider that you've done something good with your life or something like that? And I'm just like, you have a fake account to troll people. Do you think that your life is better than mine? Like, you might not consider that what I'm doing is good, but seriously, look at your life, look at your choices. But the identity politics, I also get it from a lot of people in science, a lot of professors. I have a little list that eventually, when I have power, I can tweet. And I'm just like, I have so many examples. If we need to discuss some big names, Albert Einstein had to leave Europe because of his identity. We can discuss how Emmy Noether, probably the greatest mathematical mind that ever lived, or certainly in the last 100 years, she was forced to teach under a male name because otherwise she was not allowed to teach. And also she had to leave Germany because she was Jewish. So identity politics has always been there. It's just that before it was just like people that didn't care. It's like the dominant identity, it doesn't matter. So some science happen in a physical vacuum, but no science happen in a historical one. We are the product of the politics that is around us and that shapes us. And people that claims that science is apolitical are either lying to themselves or idiots, because we are in a world that is shaped by politics, like it's shaped by science, and like it's shaped by all our social interactions. So you cannot have something that is human that it's not shaped by those. So what can we do to change things? My desire is a simple, inclusive, and intersectional revolution, which sometimes involves burning everything to the ground. Sometimes it's just challenging the status quo. Let's see what we can do. It's not just, we have a lot of discussion that we should move from diversity to inclusion, but I always feel that even just saying inclusion is just limiting. It cannot just be inclusion, it needs to be belonging. You need to not only destroy all those barriers, you need to make sure that people that are in your organization feels that they belong there, feels that they have a future there, feels that they can achieve so much there. We need to challenge our biases, that is constant standard things that we need to repeat to ourselves like a mantra. We need to understand our privileges, and we need to commit to make the world of science a better place. And I feel that this is very optimistic, but I'm always followed by a bitter pill. Well, I certainly want revolution, but sincerely, we struggle to achieve incremental positive changes. So, for as much as I want to change everything, I'm sometimes just to be happy that I can do some positive things. And one of the positive things that I've done in my life is starting Pride STEM. We started it, it was actually no grand plan, no grand project. It was a walking group in London Pride. We wanted just to have a group of us friends that are all in STEM and just walk together. When we did it, the first year, they asked us to submit a a little web contact. We created a Facebook page with a general idea, because if at the time people could just ask to join your group, and we were just like, there's 4 of us, so we might as well get more people in. And suddenly there were more and more people interested, sending us email asking us if we could give them advice for what they were trying to do in their organization, their universities, and I was like, I'm definitely out of my depth, because I don't know anything about this. I don't want to, I can find some stuff for you, I can look up how to do some things, and that's what I did. I did a lot of research, we put together some resources, and give advice, and actually, at first was very much like, this is the people that you should contact, this is the people that can give you better advice, here's what we have put together, but there's more contacts out there. And over the matter of, the Pride was then 2 months later, and it was a great success, but over the course of few months after, more and more people and organizations kept getting in touch, so we decided that we needed to have a bit of a formal structure if we were going to disseminate. Our plan originally was just put together some resources based on things like Stonewall and other organizations, and just provide them with a science outlook. And when we start thinking of what we wanted to do, we realized that something that, at least in our opinion, was missing was role modeling. And we came up with the outthinkers that I'll discuss in details in a bit, about informal science talks by LGBTQ people in STEM. And we got popular. We have 13,000 followers on Twitter. I don't know how. So that brings a lot of interest, support. So to share something, it gets retweeted a lot. The drawbacks is also a lot of trolling. So I am very, very conscious of how I share stuff. We still have resources. Whenever like organization wants to do something, or even we have a lot of students that ask us to retweet their surveys if they're working on specific queer and STEM or some overlapping of the two, and we support events aimed at LGBTQ people. And well, until last year we were part of an all-party parliamentary group, but who knows in politics this day what's happening. So some of our successes, I think that the best thing that we've done is trying to raise the profile of LGBTQ issues and people in the UK and internationally. We created a platform that it's helped people showcase their work. As I mentioned, our thinkers, so there are opportunities for STEM people to reach a wider LGBT community. So we've done some of our events. A lot of our events is science, but with queers. But some are in a queer venue of scientists. So it's trying to do a two-way streets when interacting with the community. And I am super happy that with our efforts being able to represent as many queer identities as possible in our work, making sure that every voice is truly heard. And obviously we started the International Day of LGBT people in STEM, which it's been great, but more on that later. So the two examples of successes is Outthinkers. So the events work, and please come to the Cambridge Science Festival one, but it works like this. The presenter will talk about their work, and before they will introduce themselves and their identity. It could be just as simple, if I was to do a talk, I could just say, hi, I'm Alfredo, I'm a gay scientist. Here's 15 minutes of galaxy mergers. Or we had some amazing talks that managed to sort of create a journey between their experience in STEM and their identity. So there is very there's quite a different approach depending on the people, which is wonderful. And I think and the talks are all lay audience, so if you know Pint of Science, that kind of level, but it's very approachable and everything. And I think the crucial thing is by starting talking about their identity, even just by saying like a very simple 3 words, I'm gay, I'm bi, etc., it sort of breaks the barrier between the audience and the scientist, engineer, technician or mathematician. It's the fact that we are so used in science talks to see this sort of I'm Alfredo, I'm a physicist, I have the power, I have this secret religion of physics that I'm going to explain to you. And to be honest, having been brought up Catholic, I find so many similarity between the sort of Catholic rites and explaining what physics is. I don't think that it should be that complicated talking about science. And hopefully with the lay audience approach and talking about their identity, talking about the scientist in first person breaks down the barrier even further. Also something quite pleased about is we cannot guarantee in every single event, because some events, depending on the material presented, they're 16 plus, but it's always a safe environment for LGBTQ people, and it's also an alternative kind of space that it's not alcohol-based or like bar or club, so people can come and see LGBTQ plus people in a different light. And we tend to have flexibility in venues, so we go from university to festival to done a few bars or LGBTQ venues. We're hoping that few LGBTQ community centers start popping up that we could use. And yes, we are very proud of our work with Outthinkers. And another thing that I've been extremely proud is the diversity workshop that we did at the European Space Agency. The equality officer for ESA got in touch saying that she had one major problem, and it was white men from Italy. As a white man from Italy, I was like, I think I can help. So the issue is that ESA, the way ESA hired is by nationality first, because each nation in the organization provides a certain amount of money, and so there is a quota, and then by protected characteristics. And Italians, even though we provide one of the biggest chunk of money, we already overrepresented. So this guy starts sending that was not hired, starts sending email to every single Italian man in ESA complaining, saying that it would be, they say something like it would be much easier being hired as a Romanian black lesbian than being a white Italian with a PhD in astrophysics. And the question is like, why is that Romanian black lesbian not more qualified than you? Like I try not to swear, but the hubris of thinking that just because you have a PhD, somebody else is not qualified just because they have a different identity is absolutely maddening. So we were asked to create a workshop, and knowing that the audience wasn't going to be particularly friendly to us, and I just picked the best people that I knew that could, and probably the calmest people that I knew, because I was ready to just jump over the table at any point, and they were absolutely amazing. David Pollard is the executive director of Workplace Pride Foundation, and he did the Declaration of Amsterdam. You might have heard of the Amsterdam Declaration, which was a UN thing, and This one is just a sort of flip on that, but specific on LGBT rights in the workplace, and big places like IBM or big banks sign up to that. Sheila Kanani is the Outreach and Diversity Officer at the Royal Astronomical Society, and she's absolutely brilliant. Dr. Ashley Spindler is one of our trustees, and she is absolutely phenomenal. She's done so much in support of trans rights at the University of Hertfordshire, and one of her examples I'll mention in a minute. And then we had Ellie Armstrong, who is a PhD student, and she focused on how science is represented in science museums and in science spaces, in particular with a queer and feminist lens. And so I mentioned that the audience wasn't particularly friendly, and one of the questions was from a Western guy saying, but how all this benefits me? And actually gave a great example about how changes in that came from a trans and non-binary perspective of having gender-neutral toilets, actually just cubicle in the university, are good for everyone. And she just like, people have anxiety, people would like to just be in a space they're just them, and sometimes people just want to poop in peace. That's really got him attention. It's like, oh, and he was just like, okay, what else? Another thing she did was pushing, because the university had already staff for maternity and paternity leave, they just asked, oh, could we have that for any kind of medical leave? And obviously an idea for a transition, but suddenly more cis straight people were taking that because they were having a medical intervention, and suddenly the university was supporting them. And just like, wow, changes in diversity benefits all. But it was very good. The feedback from ISA was that it was a successful event, and we are very happy that we've been able to design and deliver this kind of event. So a little bit to remind you of what the diversity in science is, because for us one of the main limitations is creating wide field intersectionality. So whenever we send a request to people that wants to be involved in any of our events, the vast majority is going to be white gay men. And as a white gay man, there's nothing wrong with them, but it's just we clearly want to show more of the community. So any one of our events requires a lot of work in finding people, and also making sure that those people are comfortable being out in front of audience. We try our best. I feel that over the last 4 years, we have overrepresented all underrepresented groups. At the same time, we cannot perfectly reach the breakdown of kind of both of disabilities and people of color. Simply, like there are some groups that tend to be a lot more. It's much easier to find, or they are used to volunteering. We have some groups that just feels that they don't want to be put in the spotlight, which is absolutely fine. And it's another. So the limitation that we have is how do we make sure that we can construct an environment in which those people are comfortable, because it's not just we don't just need to tick a box. We need to make sure that we can create something that those people want to come to us. And some it could be just reinforcing the societal bias and barriers, but some it's just it needs to be our work to go the extra mile. One thing that I want to say is last year there was this event organized at the Royal Institution called Diversity Challenge. It looked like a university challenge, but it was just to do people of every single underrepresented groups in this panel. My group 1, by the way, just putting it out there. But the thing that was amazing is I've never seen such a diverse audience at the Royal Institution, and it was the combination of almost 7 months of hard work from the organizer, and is the fact that to really get that diversity that we aspire to be, it requires a lot of work. Another issue with Planning STEM is that we are charitable trusts. So the trust model was required to actually build up us as a group, but it's not perfect, you know, and it's not ideal for a lot of expectation of the community. And it's because the trustees, we have 9 trustees, again, white gay men overrepresented, but we tend to have representative for all the underrepresented groups, but a trustee has financial responsibility. A lot of people want to be involved, they don't want to be trustees. We started looking at sort of models that we can add, but it's not super easy to change things legally, which is an issue. And another thing that is a completely different issue is I cannot also keep for GDPR any kind of record of things that said, if they say, oh, I can put little spreadsheets of people that said they want to volunteer after that email, but after a certain while I need to completely delete that. So it's a question of constantly emailing people, etc. As I said, we have big social media following, so we have a large reach, but sometimes people think we have a lot more power than we actually can. We are poor, so money, unfortunately, we're in an extremely capitalistic society, so money, it is an issue. And there's also the issue that sometimes we have biases that we don't realize we have, and I will discuss that in just a moment. It's one of the limitations of LGBTSTEM Day, which is the International Day of LGBTQ people in Science, Technology, Engineering, Maths. Was July 5th for the last 2 years, and we moved it to November 18th this year. And we're online everywhere, etc. So, it's great, it's done by us and a lot of other queer and STEM organizations from across the world, from Australia, Germany, here, Ireland, and the US. We have a lot of, this is about half of all our big name supporters. We have CERN, we have somewhere ESA, we have somewhere, there should be a Cambridge department, yes, biochemistry, so it's quite varied and it's good. The successes, we have last year over 10,000 people engaged online, so they wrote tweets or made posts about it, which is amazing. We have 32 events over 4 continents, which is absolutely fantastic. We also had some people in Antarctica, which is great. So I mentioned 65 major science organizations, companies or university that supported the initiative. And okay, this is mostly for when I do a sort of pitch or marketing. 50 million people saw the LGBT Day related posts. So that is just who looked at the hashtag or who saw the hashtag on their timeline. And I am extremely proud of what we have achieved. The idea, and that will make clear the first limitation I'll discuss in a second, was to just start hashtag, something that it was community-led. I didn't want to be in charge of making any of the decisions. We just thought, we can write this, pick a date, and then throw it into the world, and it will just prosper, etc. But that it was an issue for the first year. We had Dr. Chanda Presko-Weinstein, who is a cosmologist, and Jörg Sode, who is a planetary scientist. That they didn't tweeted in these terms. They were a bit nicer, but I would describe it as LGBT Day so white. We put out the hashtag, we make sure that our content was diverse, but how the content was spread and how the big organization talked about diversity was very much like, oh, it's LGBT Day, here is here's 2 examples, Alan Turing and Sally Ride. Some good organization mentioned Ben Barnes, and that was it. And obviously they were discussing like, okay, this is good, but it's not just these 3 white people, and it's not just white people. So in 2019, we made sure that not only our content was even more centering diversity on all kind of aspects, but also in the toolkit, we stress that if you're organizing event, if you're putting stuff on social media, think of diversity for everyone. Another issue is the community is only partially engaged. We find that people really like to be part of it and tweet about it, etc. There's very few people that wants to be involved in the preparation or involved in the analysis afterwards. So, and even when it comes to organization, we have a lot of organizations that organize events, put logos, etc., but they don't reply to our emails before. But it's in a bit, it's a little bit nonsensical to me, because there is probably the biggest organization that does that is LIGO, the Gravitational Wave Observatory, and they do amazing stuff. They have events, they have talks throughout the day. They haven't replied to a single email I've sent, and I'm just like, okay. Maybe just because considering that my emails are so important, but it's the fact that clearly if you want to be involved, why the only thing that we require as an official supporter is a logo. So, I don't know. And again, we only have limited power in producing actual change in the supporting organization. Something that we toyed with the idea was having a sort of charter of things that supporting organizations should sign up to achieve over the next 2 or 3 years. And pretty much all the biggest organizations told us we would be happy with this, but our sponsor states will veto it. So we can tell you that we're going to sign it off and then we're not going to do it. You still want to do it? So again, it's for visibility, it feels that we don't have much for change. Okay, I'm almost done. I'll tell you a little bit about the plans for the future. Something that I mentioned about struggling with other identities, we discovered that is shared with other underrepresented groups and charity and networks. And literally we sat down and like, oh, I have a problem with this. And like, oh, I have a problem with finding LGBTQ people. So what we're planning is running more events to make sure that we are expanding our audience, because it's all well and good that we have more diverse speakers, but we also need more diverse audiences. And to do that, we're going to have community of interest focus groups that will help us, giving us a better idea on how to target our message and focus on what really matters those groups, and trying to get more and more people involved, hopefully with something that is slightly different from the trustee structure. And with that, thank you very much. If you have any questions.